As I made my way home from work, I never expected to be faced with a demand so outrageous that it would make my blood boil. An entitled mother insisted that I jump in front of a car for her insurance money, but I refused to give in. Here's how it all went down. As I made my way home from work, I enjoyed the hustle and bustle of the busy city street. The smell of fresh street food wafted through the air, and the sound of honking cars and chatter filled my ears. It had been a long day at the office, but I was in good spirits. I walked at a leisurely pace, taking in my surroundings. I noticed a woman walking towards me, her head held high and a scowl on her face. As she got closer, I could tell that something was off about her. She looked agitated and impatient, and I got the sense that she was looking for a fight. As we passed each other, she stopped me in my tracks. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with entitlement. "I need a favor from you." I was taken aback by her audacity. I didn't know her, and she certainly didn't know me. Okay, I replied hesitantly. "You see that car over there?" she asked, pointing to a parked car on the side of the road. "I need you to jump in front of it." I was shocked. Why on earth would she want me to do something so dangerous? "What? No way," I protested. "It's for insurance," she explained, as if that made it okay. "I need the money, and this is the only way I can get it. You're young, you'll be fine. It's not like you'll get hurt or anything." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman was asking me to risk my life for her own gain. I was furious, but I tried to keep my cool. "I'm sorry, but I can't do that," I said firmly. She scoffed. "You're being selfish," she spat. "I need that money. You're young and healthy, you can take a little hit." I couldn't believe her nerve. Who did she think she was? "I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do it. It's not safe and it's not right," I said, my voice shaking with anger. As the argument between me and the entitled mother continued, I refused to give in to her demands. I calmly explained why what she was asking me to do was dangerous and illegal. "You need to find another way," I said firmly. The entitled mother continued to press me, insisting that I was being selfish and that I didn't care about her plight. But I knew that what she was asking was outrageous and that I wasn't about to risk my life for her own financial gain. "I'm sorry, but I can't do it," I repeated. "You need to find another way." The entitled mother's eyes narrowed. "Fine," she growled. "If you're not going to help me, then I'll find someone else who will." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed off. I watched her go, still in shock at what had just happened. I couldn't believe that someone would be so selfish and reckless. As I made my way home, I couldn't shake the feeling of anger and frustration that the entitled mother had caused me. But I also felt a sense of pride in myself for standing up to her and not giving in to her entitled demands. As I reflected on the encounter, I realized that it was a reminder of the importance of standing up for oneself and not letting others take advantage of us. It was a valuable lesson that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. Though it was a brief encounter, I was still shaken up about it, and I hope that this person did not go around asking people to jump in front of cars for her. That's absurd. Wow, that entitled mother sounds like a nightmare. Good for her for standing up to her and not giving in to her ridiculous demands. What a crazy world we live in sometimes. I am a waitress. Our restaurant strictly requires masks while indoors if your meal or beverage hasn't been served and after it's been bussed. The mask mandate honestly wasn't that helpful in corralling unruly customers because they'd either argue that the mandate was not a law so they wouldn't follow it, was unconstitutional so they wouldn't follow it, or was irrelevant because they'd eventually be taking their mask off when their food was served, so they wouldn't follow it. But while the presence of a mandate didn't help much, the lack of a mandate has made things way worse. People who previously wore a mask now don't believe it's necessary for their health or that we have a right to set mask wearing as a store policy. But what they don't understand, and what I'll reiterate for you now, private businesses can have any dress code they want. Have you ever been to a fancy restaurant that requires suit jackets for men? Or a grocery store that requires shoes? Yeah, where were the freedom fighters then? Regardless of your opinion on masks, there is no need to argue with me or anyone else in the comments or as a customer, since the owner makes those decisions, and it's my job to enforce them. Whether it's requiring customers to wear face masks or sleeveless denim vests, I have to enforce it if the owner wants it. That's literally part of my job. Our in-house mask mandate at the restaurant remains firmly in place, and I spent my entire shift telling people to comply or leave, then telling them again, then a third time, then getting our larger, more physically intimidating line cook to tell them. By the end of the shift, I became an expert at putting my hand up authoritatively and saying, "Sir, ma'am, it is your choice whether or not to wear a face covering, just as it is our choice to service you in this private business. So comply with our dress code or exit the premises." A few people called the police, or acted as though they were, but at no point did any real authorities bother coming. After my shift ended, I was absolutely exhausted and ready to forget about anti-maskers, COVID truthers, and just eat some banana oatmeal. I stopped by the supermarket on the way home, and the chain still requires masks. As I approached the door, most people were maskless but stopped short of the entrance to put masks on when seeing the sign. No problem. The people directly next to me, though, were a mom with a classic Karen haircut and a teenage son approximately 15. The mom actually did put a tattered, ill-fitting surgical mask on. She wasn't even wearing it correctly, but still, better than nothing. Her son, however, didn't break stride and just kept heading into the store. His mom flagged him down and said, "Jeremy, put a mask on. It's the policy." Kind of quietly, as though she was trying not to anger him. He said, "I thought we didn't have to do that BS anymore. I saw it in the news." His mom explained that businesses could still require a mask even if the state no longer did. At first, I was thinking, props to Karen, her haircut is totally misleading. But her son couldn't just let it end on a nice note. He whined that he didn't bring a mask, and he didn't want to walk all the way back to the car to get one. And there wasn't Wi-Fi in the parking lot, so no way was he going to wait for her in the car. If he had a mask in the car, why would he have had to wait for her there? Mom tried to think of a rebuttal, eyeing the policy no exceptions sign but seemed too tired to generate one. So she just braced herself, and they headed into the store. A greeter stopped the son and said he needed a regulation face covering, but he ignored her, grunting, "Don't have one," and kept walking. The greeter called after him, but couldn't move from her spot by the door, and eventually, he was too deep into the aisles to notice. I found all this offensive. However, I was too exhausted from dealing with guys like him professionally to take it on personally. I just went about finding the right color of bananas and trying to get back to my car as quickly as I could. Fast forward to the deli counter. I had taken a ticket and was standing on line. Karen and her son were right nearby. Happily, several people were giving Karen's son the evil eye besides me and keeping a healthy distance from him, but he could not have cared less, and neither could his mom. She was placing a long, elaborate deli order, and he was picking up lemons in a nearby display and putting them back. Her son was having a loud FaceTime conversation with a friend, expelling his air and his noisy chatter onto shoppers in every which direction. But I tried to put it out of my mind because I just did not have the bandwidth to deal with people like this one more time tonight. That's when it happened. He coughed, maskless and directly on the lemons. I was getting ready to say something, but thankfully, a deli worker noticed and called him out, saying, "Who's coughing?" Looking all around and noticing the kid. "Hey son, you've got to wear a mask to be in here." Karen Jr. shrugged his shoulders, but the deli guy wasn't having it, pulling out the corporate policy sheet. So Karen Jr. looked to his mom for support. She seemed genuinely embarrassed by her son, but not so much so that she would hold him accountable for his dangerous choices. She hurriedly explained, "Oh, he has a mask, but he left it in the car, and we parked in the far lot." The deli counter employee was persistent, saying, "I don't care where he left it. It's the policy. Mask up or head out." He took a few assertive steps in the kid's direction, which was too much for Karen to handle. She threw herself between her son and the worker. There was still easily 10+ feet of space between them. He was hardly chesting up to the kid, as Karen triumphantly declared, "The store isn't allowed to have that policy anymore. Didn't you see Governor Abbott's announcement? It was never even a law anyways." That stymied the deli guy. My guess is that he had seen the announcement but wasn't sure what to make of it. He didn't want to risk his job if he really couldn't enforce a mask policy anymore, and he had a line piling up at his station, so he couldn't argue with her all day. So he stepped back, but not before saying, "Well, either way, you shouldn't need a law. It's a paragon of selfishness what you're doing. Son, my mother is dead of this disease. Dead in the ground. Never got to meet her granddaughter. She wasn't too much older than your mother. You should think about that." The kid laughed at the deli guy, not chuckled, but full-blown belly-laughing cackling. His mother pulled him away, saying he was being rude, but didn't make him apologize, let alone apologize herself. I placed my order, told the guy how despicable that exchange was, and apologized for his loss. And that was that. Or so I'd hoped. I prayed I'd be able to avoid them for the rest of my trip, but lo and behold, just as I was about to check out, I realized I was out of plastic wrap. I always have leftovers, so I needed to go for the wrap. Didn't matter how close to checkout I was. I doubled back, holding my breath, no pun intended, and sure enough, the mother-son duo was stationed at the end cap having an argument with a clerk. As best I could figure it from the bits and pieces I picked up, customers were complaining about his coughing enough to motivate a manager to confront the family. The manager was physically intimidating, so I guessed he was the staff's go-to guy for confrontations, but it became immediately apparent he did not have a personality for conflict. His name was Chet, name tag, and he was a human teddy bear at like 6', 5 inches and 300 pounds. He had, to his credit, managed to get Karen's cart away from her, holding it to the side so they could not continue shopping until her son put his mask on. But now Chet was pleading with Karen. "Please don't yell at me. I can't understand you when you're yelling." Karen was going off on Chet about the laws he had broken, the discrimination he was enacting against her son, how the entire store had been harassing a minor child since they entered, and how the news and the corporate office would hear about this, and he would be out of a job and no one is hiring right now, so he better be careful. Chet seemed genuinely surprised as he tried and failed to communicate to Karen gentle reassurance of, "I am trying to help you actually. Ma'am, I don't want to harass anyone. I want to work this out. The situation at hand, though, is that you cannot continue to shop until your son conforms to our corporate masking policy for the well-being of the communities we serve, all right? Help me help you." Meanwhile, as Karen was preaching, well, screeching, the innocence of Karen Jr., her son was actively berating her, telling her she was embarrassing, ineffective, and that she was so stupid for wasting time arguing with these people, and that he wanted to just ignore them and keep shopping. He was small in comparison to Chet, who was tall and broad. It was unclear why he thought he could just ignore the situation and continue shopping. At this stage, the author realized it was disrespectful to just be a voyeur to the spectacle. They would either have to speak up or move on with their shopping. Maybe this was the straw that broke the author's back after the day they had at work. Maybe they were just on autopilot, or maybe they felt sympathy for Chet, probably a mix of all three. But their mask-enforcing persona roared to life. Luckily, the author was still wearing their work clothes, including their name tag, or this might not have worked. They stormed over with their most authoritative manager of the manager swagger and said, excuse me, you're creating a disturbance. Do we have a problem here?" Poor Chet started trying to explain and remove the author from the situation, thinking they were a concerned customer who was upset by the disruption of their altercation, or worse, a third member of the Karen party. But the author just fell into their script, which they had down cold at this point, reciting, "Sir, ma'am, you have a choice as to whether or not you'd like to wear a mask. And as a private business, we have a choice as to the dress code we'd like to set for our customers. You have two options as to how we can proceed from here." Karen just kept talking over the author while her son complained at her to stop engaging with them and keep shopping, including this gem of a line. "They're literally lower than rent-a-cops. They are the can-stacking people. Just ignore them." So, I went into the Phase 2 script. Alright, you have made the choice not to partake in our services, and we have, in turn, made the choice not to service you. Please leave now, or you will be escorted out. If you leave of your own volition, you'll be welcomed back if dressed appropriately. If escorted out, a permanent ban will be issued. Please note we have a clear view of your face on our CCTV to reference, as you are not currently wearing a mask. That nearly made Karen Jr.'s head explode. He started shouting obscenities at us, and I just flatly stated, "My colleague is contacting security," getting edgier as he escalated because A, I made the assumption the store had security, but it was dawning on me that I had no clue whether or not they did, and B, Karen Jr. was physically larger than me. So I thought back to the stories of store workers being attacked, even killed by anti-maskers for enforcing these policies. For a minute, I wondered if I should have kept my nose out of this business, but Karen stepped up to the plate. Better late than never. She started pulling her son towards the door, insisting, "I cannot be banned from here. This store is easily closest to the house. Come on, come on." He resisted at first, even intentionally pushing over the end cap display in a rage, to which Chet offered the strong words of, "Hey now, was that really necessary?" When he started destroying property, Karen left him to face security on his own and made a beeline for her car. After about 15 seconds more of kicking stuff around, Karen Jr. realized he was left standing on his own 2 feet, without Mommy there to shield him from real-world consequences, and absolutely broke down. A wave of terror washed over him, and just as quickly as he'd flown into the initial rage, he bolted for the exit. Chet was so casual about all of this. He turned to me and asked, "You don't work here, do you? I've never seen you before," and I explained what I'd been dealing with at work and how I felt obligated to step in as a result, and he sincerely thanked me, even offered me coupons, but chillingly said that while he appreciated the thought behind it, next time I should not get involved. He warned that some of the anti-maskers had been wholly unstable, hitting or spitting at employees, and they did have a usual security guard, but he was out that day because of an injury an anti-masked inflicted on him at another job site. It's only because he was out that they sent any regular store workers to confront the kid at all. He sighed and said, "This is mostly what I have been doing today. I do not know if it is because I have a calm demeanor or because I look like I do not have a calm demeanor. But either way, I am always the one they send to deal with difficult customers." I was so distracted by all this, I didn't even end up remembering to get my plastic wrap. I just checked out and headed home as quickly as I could. So stay safe out there, everyone. Wear your masks, keep your distance, get the vaccine, watch out for one another. We'll be through to the other side of this soon. Not as soon as we could be, thanks to people like Karen and Son, but soon. I can't believe some people are still refusing to wear masks. It's so important to follow the rules and keep each other safe. Shout out to her for standing up to those anti-maskers. You're a hero. I never could have imagined how things could have spiraled into what happened. If you guys thought my brother-in-law throwing my chair through a bay window after his son wasn't allowed to sit on it was crazy, just read about all of this. You're not going to want to believe it. Firstly, my good padded folding chair I'd paid over $1.80 for was stolen. I have no idea by who, as it didn't happen at a family event, but rather hanging out at a friend's house. Somebody just walked into his yard and took it. I learned my lesson and decided never to buy an expensive folding chair again. Now, I just keep a cheap folding chair I got for $3 at a secondhand store in my trunk. Moving on to other stuff, the family pranks I described in my last post seemingly stopped, but some of them slowly resumed. However, they were only harmless little things that just give chuckles. The only person that they refused to prank at all was me, due to the events of my previous posts. But that didn't stop entitlement. The 7-year-old son of one of my cousins stole my phone during a family birthday party at my parents' house, and intentionally broke it rather than return it. His parents were already going through a rough patch. My cousin, the father, was constantly clashing with his wife over how to parent their child. His now ex-wife was a bad enabler of their son. She's also terrible with money, and has a very my way or the highway attitude, and she does not like to back down when wrong. She was one of the more outspoken people that hated me bringing my own chair and never sharing it. But she never got physical about it. She once confronted me and said that if I was going to bring my own chair, it should be something nice and made of wood that doesn't fold. I told her I was not going to lug around a dining room chair wherever I go when a folding chair takes up only a little space in my trunk. She argued with me about it more and got nowhere. None of the family events were at her house, and she does not dictate my life. She gave me death glares for months, but otherwise left me alone. The night her son stole my phone, he'd already been grounded from electronics by his father. The kid took my phone when I set it down on a table to eat some cake, and then ran off with it when I wasn't looking. He holed himself up in the master bedroom closet and was trying to install new gaming apps on my phone. That closet had a lock on the door and the key was lost years ago. The brat refused to come out or return the phone. His mother kept telling us all, mainly me, to just leave him alone and let him game on it. But I refused and said my phone was not his toy. The brat was told several times to open the door, and he refused. All the while, his mother kept contradicting everything said. My cousin got fed up and started forcing the old door open. It's an old manufactured home, and that door was pretty flimsy. Just as he was making headway, we heard loud banging sounds from inside the closet. The brat had started banging my phone against the nearest hard object he could find. The brat let out some loud screams as his dad pulled him out of the closet. The screen on my phone was nearly destroyed. Thankfully, the rest of it was protected by the case. My cousin's wife tried to blame it on me and said it was my fault her child broke the phone because I wouldn't let him play on it. Everyone in the room turned on her, and she shut up out of cowardice. It cost around $300 to repair my phone, and I had to use a temporary one until mine was fixed. And yes, my cousin paid for the repairs. Well, the rest of the family knew about my cousin's wife's dislike for folding chairs like the one I keep in my car, and they decided to pull a prank on her because of her attitude after the incident with her son stealing my phone. I want to be clear that I was not involved in this in any way, nor did I condone doing it. But the entire thing was out of my hands. My cousins got together, decided to prank that jerk of a wife, and got their hands on a whole bunch of folding chairs. Then they removed every chair and seat in his house and replaced them with the folding chairs. Folding chairs at the dining table, folding chairs at the counter, folding chairs in place of the living room furniture, and more were strategically placed around the house. Even the chairs on the porch were replaced with them. When my cousin's wife came home, her reaction went far beyond what anyone thought. Their plan was to just record her having a tantrum and get a laugh. But she ended up going insane on the spot and tried to get a knife from the kitchen to attack her husband with. When she couldn't get the knife, she pulled out pepper spray from her purse and used it on everybody. Then she attacked her husband with her long fake nails. She probably would have tried to claw his eyes out or something, but thankfully one of the other guys there kicked her off him. I couldn't believe this happened all because of folding chairs. And I feel like the root cause, since I was always bringing my own chair to family events, since there was never enough seating, and people kept taking the places where I was sitting, and it escalated far beyond me. Police were obviously called and the wife was arrested. All the men present had to go to the hospital because of the pepper spray in their eyes, and my cousin had to get his scratches treated. He looked like he had been attacked by a bobcat. He filed for an immediate order of protection against his wife. They recorded everything, including her trying to get a knife and screaming that she would stab someone. After spending some time in jail, she had to go stay with her sister. I've heard her sister is as narcissistic as she is. My cousin obviously filed for divorce, and his wife later spent more time in jail after pleading guilty to the assault. She was not allowed to see her son for a while, and tried to take it out on my cousin in court during the divorce. It did not go in her favor because he was easily able to prove how unstable she is. My cousin got primary custody of his son, and his ex got only supervised visitation since she was so mentally unstable. She's pretty much abandoned her son and has shacked up with some overweight older man. She got a serious tan and bleached her hair. I guess she would rather live the life of a sugar baby caked in makeup. My cousin's son has shown great improvement since being separated from his mother. He underwent counseling, and now listens to his father more. The kid needs to be babysat a lot since my cousin has to work, but at least things have gotten better. I still feel like the root cause of this was the chair thing though. Wow, just when you think you've heard it all. Folding chairs causing chaos and mayhem, but in all seriousness, that's a crazy story. Glad to hear the son is doing better and the cousin got custody. And hey, lesson learned, never bring an expensive folding chair to a family event.